Welcome to Spirit Knox, a Brooklyn Mosaic. I'm here to do a follow-up on the last video I did where I talked about the paternal side of my family and their involvement in demonic sexual rituals with the firstborns of the family. I happen to be one of those firstborns. Through my spiritual awakening and my meditation practice, I was able to tap into some inner child work that I had to do. And it was through divination that my paternal grandfather showed up and showed me graphically that he was involved in sex rituals with the firstborns of the family. There were priests involved, there were other men. His brother was there. My grandfather's name is Chester Edgehill. His brother's name is Arthur Edgehill. He doesn't have a lot of kids. He just has an older daughter. He has a daughter, which would be the firstborn, and then a son. And I know for a fact that my cousin has always had problems with fertility. And I'm pretty sure she doesn't even know why. But I can guarantee that this is the reason why, because as a baby, she was molested. It was not a coincidence that my uncle did not have a lot of children because he probably knew if in fact a lot of children were produced in the family, they would have to keep giving them to this process. However, my grandfather seemed to make his life around, he built his wealth around giving his grandchildren to this church process. All of it sounds a bit Illuminati, like lower level, but this is what we hear about the celebrities doing, right? These rituals have taken place throughout history, and God is not happy, right? This is not something people are doing for God. They are doing this for demonic spirits. They are signing spiritual contracts for these babies with demonic forces when they come of age that will come and search them out. I have had that experience. Um, I'm here today because I want to talk about the sexual offenses on my maternal side of the family. And again, I know this is not a coincidence, and I know that God put me in this position for a reason. So, on the maternal side of the family, my maternal grandfather was a sex offender. My maternal grandfather raped, sexually assaulted his two older daughters. He went after my mother and her sister, but luckily their brother was able to come and take them away. He had a total of 13 children with my grandmother, but they were three sets of twins. All of the twins died except for one, and that one was my mother. Again, you can see how, things are being played out so that I am where I am today. So I tell you all that story to not only tell you about the sex offenses that people keep secret, but to talk about how that affects family and how that trauma can continue for generations. So in addition to my grandfather doing what he was doing to my grandmother, now, of course, the children are being moved from place to place because he's beating my grandmother. She's trying to escape him. She's moving different places with the kids, trying to get away from him. He keeps finding her. My uncle now is being neglected. He is sexually offended by a neighbor, a family friend. Um, when he tells his older brother, my uncle is like, who is it? Like, I'll handle this, But supposedly my uncle would not disclose the information. Understandably, right? I think a lot of people are always like, well, this person did this to you, this person did that, show me who it is. But if you, in any way, as a young person, as a sexualized adolescent, think that someone is showing you love and you don't even realize that they're taking advantage of you, why would you give that person up? You're not going to say, this is the person that's been doing these things to me, because it's probably the only person that acts like they care anything about you. And we tend to demonize the victims, these sexual The sexualized children who are survivors, we demonize them. We demonize the children and make them feel like, well, you should have told someone. No. How about they should have never been put in a position where they had to tell anyone? Why weren't they protected? The adults were so busy dealing with their mess and their dysfunction, they didn't even realize that this was happening to one of their children. So my uncle had his own battle, and luckily, he was able to come out of that and become a very intelligent, well-spoken, multi-talented man. The only problem with that was that he ended up living like a secret life, which later affected kind of his family life and his relationships. And I don't know if he ever really settled with that, if he ever really felt like he was honest with himself. I do know he ended up being very wealthy and leaving the family in a better position. It is my hope that he found peace um, in, his transition. Because when you have to live a life based on what other people think or what other people think is acceptable, that can be like, that can cause anxiety, that can cause stress. So that was that situation with my uncle. So we have that, where he was sexually assaulted. We have, my mother and her younger sister who were, indirect victims of this sexual assault because my grandfather went after them. He didn't get to do anything to them, but they knew what he was capable of. So that's something you're living with on a daily basis. Um, on top of that, he's an alcoholic. There's a lot of domestic violence, they lost their mom at a really early age. My grandmother, I think when my grandmother transitioned, my mother was 5 years old. So now you have a young girl without her mother that is going to one day become a mother, and how will she connect with her children, right? These are all the little gaps and things that we have that we don't take into consideration how it's going to affect our children later. So I wanted to have this discussion because, like I said, I talked about what happened on the paternal side of the family, that's where my molestation took place. But in my mother's care, there was a girl 5 years older than me when I was 5 that was like inappropriate. She wanted to play games and, touch me. And I never liked her. Like, I always felt she was a bully and I would keep my distance from her. And a friend of mine was like, yo, like, why you let this girl bother you all the time? I'm like, yo, she big, she was big and fat. I was all small and scrawny. And my friend was like, listen, I got 3 sisters. She was like, the next time she says something to you, get at her, smack her right in her face. So when the girl came down the street running her mouth, I just whopped her and I beat this girl so bad, like they didn't even have to jump in. It was like I was holding in all this pent up anger for this girl bothering me. And that was what I remembered as being like an offense. This girl trying to kiss me and want to be next to me. And I'm like, what is wrong with her? I knew it wasn't right. And I would just avoid her. So that was what I remembered. But it wasn't until I did my shadow work and my inner child work that I realized I was holding trauma in my sacral. And when I tell you, when you do this work, you will actually feel movement, like a blockage is moving out of your sacral when you do this work. At least that's what I felt. And so through my healing practice, that is what I'll be helping people do. How do you get in touch with that? How do you tap into that? Because, I thought, listen, it's all lovely. I'm feeling good, looking good. I said, I don't have no work to do. I'm good. I'm all done. Spirit was like, no, you have a blockage. You still have a blockage. I'm doing all kind of meditations, the violet, light, the light from the core of the earth. I'm running it through my chakras. I'm in alignment. No, Spirit was like, nope, there's something you're not dealing with. And I was like, what is it? And it wasn't until I was looking at a baby picture. And I kept looking at this picture. And when I looked really close, I'm like, why do I have like purple smoke coming out of my mouth? And why do I have like half of a green aura? Like something was, and that's when it clicked. And then the more I looked at the picture, all the answers were in the picture. On the price tag, you see me I talked about in the other video that on that tag, I could see the priest and my grandfather standing side by side. I could see all parties involved. And so my divinations just clarified, verified everything that I saw. So I share this information with you all because I want you to be on top of your emotions and how it's affecting you and how we have to stop this dysfunctional family trauma, right? God does not want our families like this. We have to stop these rituals. We have to obliterate these rituals because if we think they happen on a low level with just the normal everyday person, what do you think is happening in Hollywood? They're getting together in large groups and they're affecting the masses. They're affecting the collective. We got to break that down from the bottom. If they don't have nothing to stand on, they can't continue what they're doing. We got to break it down. We have to break it down. And so that is my plea today. If you know anyone in your family that is dealing with any type of trauma or blocked memories, share this video with them. Tell them to get in touch with me. Okay, there will be more videos on rituals to explain exactly what is taking place, how people are getting involved, and we have to put a stop to it. I thank you for your time. I know this was not an easy topic. I know that I'm hoping that this was not a trigger for anyone, but it should be something to motivate you to get the help that you need. I am in no way a medical doctor, but I am a trained outpatient therapist. I'm a certified herbalist. I've done counseling, mediation training. So I have some training. So please feel free to get in touch and I will see you all in the next one. Thank you for joining me in Spirit Knox for Brooklyn Mosaic.